Good morning, everyone. I'm Izzy Greenberg. Welcome to Early Care Connection. Today, we are joined by our resident panel of experts, Meryl Gay from the Connecticut Early Childhood Alliance and Ava Bermudez-Zimmerman from Child Care for CT. We also have Adrienne Rodriguez from CSEA SEIU joining us. We've got so much to cover. We did originally have Office of Early Childhood sort of set up for today, but decided we wanted to push that out until the session is over, and then we can get a more full presentation from them. So apologies if a few weeks ago we had said that, but everything's changed. So legislative session, we're gonna talk about that. First, I'm gonna slow myself down and remind everyone that we are being simultaneously interpreted from English to Spanish, and to speak slowly enough that Sandra can get all of the details to everybody. A reminder to our community to use the chat for communication between yourselves or for technical difficulties, but that if you have questions for the panelists, to please use the Q&A. So, all right, here we go. The great news is SB1 has passed both the Senate and the House, and now is on to the governor's desk for signing. So it is not law yet because it hasn't been signed, but it has gone through the gauntlet and passed the biggest pieces. 5003, which is also an important bill, has gone through the House and is expected to be voted on in the Senate today. Things are looking promising on that one. And if passed, that will also go on to the governor's desk. We don't expect a veto on either of these. We don't expect the governor not to sign. But you never know till the thing's done. So let's not count our chickens. Let's be excited that it passed through the House and the Senate, though. The third thing that has to happen in the next few days is the budget, which also, I'll let someone else talk about the budget. That's not my expertise. What I want to say before I pass it over to Meryl, Liz, and Adrienne for explanation is how thoroughly excited and proud I am to be in this community with you all. We kicked butt. And the fact that we got childcare to be front of mind for lawmakers in the House, in the Senate, at the governor's office this session, the fact that you all showed up, you were out in droves. We had childcare advocates all over the Capitol this year, people calling, writing letters, talking to legislators, showing up at rallies, doing what you needed to do. We really did something this session. And again, I don't want to have our huge celebration yet, but guys, we're just about there. So I just wanted to say how excited I am, how proud of all of us I am, and how amazing this community is. So we took when we were thinking back on it, and we really started these calls at the beginning of the pandemic just to like literally keep ourselves alive. And out of that, we have taken what was a total crisis and transformed it into this powerful community that is doing real work and making real substantive change. And I just think it's the most awesome. It's just awesome. And I'm so proud to be a part of it and really, really happy to be in it with you all. So that's it for me and my rah-rah. So excited. I can't even stand it right now. I'm going to pass it on to Meryl, who is going to give us the breakdown first of what's in SB1 so that you all can get up to date on that one. We're then going to go to Ava, who's going to talk a little bit more about the budget and 5003. And then we're going to go to Adrienne to tell us about the health insurance portion, which is this is all a big deal. Guys, it's a big deal. So anyway, all right, Meryl, turning it over to you.
Okay, so let me try and explain this in really high level terms, and then I'll go into some more detail. SB1 creates an endowment to support early childhood education, really to strengthen the state-funded system of early care and education. It funds it with surplus funds each year. Now, for anybody who's fought for money in the budget, the question of like, what do you mean surplus money? It's always a tight budget. We can't, things are always getting cut. Well, that is because we have set up this set of fiscal guardrails. And one of the two forced savings plans is called the revenue cap. It says we can only budget 98.5% of the money that we expect to take in each year. And that 1.5% that's left gets saved in case there's some unexpected emergency within the fiscal year. All of a sudden the tax revenues drop or something like that, or there's some big unexpected expense. But under normal circumstances, that's producing several $100 million worth of surplus that is just getting at the end of the year rolled into either the rainy day fund or used to pay off pension debt. It's the smaller of the two big savings plans. Now what will happen each year is at the end of June, right before the end of the fiscal year, we will transfer that money to the early childhood endowment. So this year, the SB1 says up to $300 million. This year, because they used some of that money to pay off a Medicaid deficit, that's probably going to be more like 220, 250 million. And that money goes into the endowment. We save most of it. For the first 2 years, we can use 12% of that money. So it's not a huge amount of money initially, but it starts to accumulate. If we're putting in $300-400 million each year into that account, it doesn't take very long for that to grow to $1 billion. We expect that it will be a fight to keep making sure that we put more money into that trust fund each year, and that we don't rate it for other things. But we have to make sure legislators understand the promise of this, that through this program, child care providers, from family child care to center-based programs, as well as public schools, can all get funds to build the early start system. And that the things that will do are to increase the funding for programs, reduce the costs to parents, provide a health insurance benefit to early educators, and it is designed to grow serving the poorest families first. So it will have less impact on those market rate providers in suburban communities where families are able to pay, and have its biggest impact first on lower income families. So the place we will start to see most of the impact on this hitting in 2028. At that point, the fund is anticipated to be big enough that parent fees can be dropped so that families under $100,000 will not have to pay a parent fee for childcare in those state-funded programs, and that those programs will not have to rely on Care for Kids anymore. I'm not exactly sure on the timing. It depends on how much money is in the fund at the time as to how much of this can all happen at once. So we'll hear more about that when OEC comes on to digest what's happened and explain it to us all. But this is really big. It sets up a regular deposit to a trust fund, and then that trust fund is invested and should be growing, and then lets us draw down from that trust fund to raise wages for early educators, make care affordable for families, and grow the system, as well as providing a health insurance benefit starting in the second year. But I think we should let Adrienne talk about that.
Right. And then we do have some questions. I'm going to wait, I think, until the end to go through the questions, everybody. Okay, Ava, are you ready to go? Calling you next. Because she was in transit, I think, at the beginning of this call. So.
I am. You're okay with me going next and not Adrienne? That makes sense?
Or yeah. If you could go and you want to tell us about some of the budget and the portal, that would be helpful. Updates on the budget and the portal. Or 5003, budget and 5003.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Can you still see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. My camera's working. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Before I go into the budget updates, I did also want to take a moment and say thank you to a shout out to Liz Frazier. So I wanted to give a shout out to Liz Frazier because she, with all of us, helped launch these calls. And even though she has a different role, she is not outside of the childcare space. Many of you know that she works for Liz, still making amazing things happen in childcare, and she's awesome. So thank you, Liz, for making it possible. And of course, echoing Izzy, this work is not possible without all of you as collaborators and partners in making the advocacy happen. So the budget. The kickoff with the budget is that there's certain things that didn't make it into 5003 and also SB1, but did make it into the budget. The budget is being debated on and it is expected that the budget will be called on today to be debated on. We will know for sure in about an hour. Session has not started yet today. Our lobbyists, our team members, and the insiders are telling us that it should be on track for today. If in fact it happens today and is voted on, so far, what they sent to us and what's already the draft that's already on file, we were reviewing it this morning and dissecting the details. It has the money for the SB1 bill, the endowment money, because again, it's the budget, so you got to keep the money there. So it's 200 million, but again, for the endowment, it can go up to 300 million if the legislature desires. Specific to Care for Kids in the budget, we were all, as advocates, really asking for more money to expand additional slots and spaces for Care for Kids, more money that would get us out of the waiting list and into additional seats. The last time we were negotiating, we were told that leadership was probably going to put 75 million. That was like the promise that they were really aiming on. And I am happy to announce that in this budget, they're putting 150 million. So 'tis the season for childcare. What does that mean? So that 150 would allow, so it's going to limit the eligibility for Care for Kids to 85% of the median income for parents. So that would make more parents qualify. And it's also going to cap the cost for that parent to 7%. It would give additional space for slots. So theoretically, a lot of the waiting lists that we expected to be happening should be gone. The waiting list right now is 1,762, give or take maybe 10 from the last conversation we had with OEC. And this will fill the need for 1,200 additional slots. I know it's not the home run of the full waiting list we have right now, but 1,200 more slots. A lot of you on the line, on the call, will see a breath of fresh air of space on that waiting list as soon as we get that money, which is fantastic news for those families who need it, right? The other detail is that there's going to be additional phases well, let me take it in parts here. So that was Care for Kids. Back to the endowment. Yes, we're looking at up to 300 million to 200 promise immediately, but there will be phases that will allow for subsequent years to go up to that 300 million. And it's very clear that the relationship between the endowment and Care for Kids, they're not supplanting, they're not taking up any existing money for any existing programs. So we, for the first time ever, we're not trying to steal from Peter to pay Paul. Did I get that saying right? we're not taking from one pocket and then putting it into another pocket. There are two different pockets of money, which is pretty exciting. So the Care for Kids program gets more money, and we're not stealing or rating from that program, while we create a new program, the endowment, that gets brand new money. And the money for this new program gets locked into a nice little lockbox called the endowment. Okay, other things in the budget. We also have money that's going to be allocated for capital improvements. The organization that will be managing that, as I mentioned, LISC, LISC. Many of you have done grants, have requested for money, and right now that program will be allocated $80 million in bonding. The first 50 mil, well, if you are a provider requesting that funding, then you'll have the opportunity and ability through their RFP process. We'll make sure we have folks on this call from LISC navigating how it works. But just know that there's 80 million in bonding. I'm gonna hold on and not get into the weeds. And I think I should pause there because I'm really tempted to dive a little deeper. So I'll pass the mic over to Adrian. And if you want me to talk about the exchange a little bit more, I could do that.
All right. Thank you so much, Ava. Passing it over to Adrian. So we're so grateful for you to being here with us this morning. Adrian Rodriguez, Childcare Director for CSEA SEIU, and knows a lot about the health insurance aspect. So Adrian, turning it over to you.
Thank you, Izzy. Good morning, everyone who is on the call. We are really excited about this year's session and SB1. As Maria Amado just put in the chat, yes, this is a very historic moment, not just for us as a union, but for us as a state and for early childhood educators across the state. To provide some context, health insurance, as you all know, is something that is often inaccessible for family childcare providers. Many find themselves ineligible for Medicaid, and the plans on Access Health CT are just far too expensive, especially when substitutes or aides or staff are earning more than the owners or the directors or the staff that you all need in order to keep your spaces open. And so this is actually one of the top bargaining priorities that has been on the union's list every single negotiations for the last 10 years. This is part of the reason why so many family childcare providers across the state voted to unionize. It was rate increases and access to quality, affordable healthcare. Now, I'm very excited to share that this win is not only for our union members, but that through our union advocacy of over the last 10 years and the advocacy of the individuals on this panel and many more other organizations, we've been able to win a transformative path to affordable quality health insurance for all early childhood educators across the state, right? And so this is not just for family childcare providers, this is also for employers who are offering health insurance benefits to their employees at centers as well. And so this is something that we know we have been going to the Capitol year after year, speaking with members of different caucuses, speaking with members along different party lines about the importance for access to health insurance for family childcare educators. And so what exactly does it look like? Well, in the first year, there's funding for a study. This study will assess the current the current needs and the current shortfalls of the healthcare that is currently available. We know that it is unaffordable, right? But Connecticut, they love their studies and they love their pilots. And so they're going to do a study to determine exactly how much is this going to cost them in the long run, how many people need this, this kind of access. This is something that our local, we are affiliated with SEIU, it's our international union, and our sister unions in California and in other states have won paths to healthcare subsidies and healthcare programs because, of course, they are not, the childcare providers are not employees of the state. And so the state does not want to put the early childhood educators or providers on the state-sponsored plan. So what are some creative ways? That could look like a subsidy program. So in a similar fashion as to how parents receive a subsidy through the state to be able to afford childcare, now family childcare providers, workers in early education centers, and our childcare programs would also receive a similar, may also receive a similar subsidy towards their healthcare expenses. This is all going to be figured out in the second year after the study is all completed, and we figured out exactly what does that cost look like for the need across the state. And so I'll pause there. I'm sure that there may be some questions from everyone, and I'll turn it back to you, Izzy.
Thank you so much. Ava, you still there?
Yes.
Hold on. Ava, I said that too fast. Did you talk about the portal and we missed it?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Okay.
I forgot. The portal. There's also, so going back on bills that were approved, there's 5003. And I know for anyone who's on the call and have heard these bill numbers and taken the time to read them or read the Early Childhood Alliance talking points or Childcare for CT's talking points, that the versions of these bills priorities were different in the original. So things switched around. You know, what was SB1 has more elements of 5003 and vice versa. So the now approved in the House Bill 5003 and hopefully approved soon to be today in the Senate is a portal. And it will streamline how parents have the opportunity to access childcare, so childcare services, and make it also easier for the childcare providers to look at the application process. There's a long road to starting that portal. The Office of Early Childhood has to first put out, first has to, look at the framework that they have drafted. Then there's an RFP process for looking at vendors, hiring that vendors, working closely to what they want and that user experience. But the top level is the portal will make it easier for parents and providers for payment and for access.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, Adrian. I'm sorry I got so wrapped up in the portal confusion that I didn't say thank you to you for that. Really appreciate that. Okay, we have a lot of questions here. So I guess if all three of you could just jump in when you think there's one that you can cover most precisely, that would be excellent. And also, I am loving the chat. It's robust and interesting, and there's some disagreement and there's some uplifting. And if you all haven't spent any time on the chat this morning, try to split your attention or download it for later. Okay, so Michelle was the first one in here and has some concerns about what the impact of, I guess, SB1 probably will have on family child care in Connecticut. If you are not interested in Care for Kids or participating, why wouldn't parents just choose a free program over yours? Basically, it removes the competition for people who are not interested in taking any state funds. Additionally, if you do choose to participate, would you need to become NAEYC certified? And then the final question from her, and I want to just make sure I get all of these all at once, was, let's see. Oh boy. Well, let's start there. And then it was about how long it will take to get reimbursed if you choose to do this after all as a family child care provider. So, all right. Meryl, is probably you.
Sure. So the first impact that this is going to have is going to be on the 17,000 kids who are currently in a state-funded program, because they're the ones who will first see the reduction in costs for the families under $100,000. point here is to grow that system, first to strengthen it and then to grow it. So when I say strengthen it, it means move towards paying the full cost of care so that those programs don't need to rely on Care for Kids as well as the state-funded grant or contract amount. Those programs are already paid in advance quarterly, and the plan is for Care for Kids to move to paying in advance, but the current requirement is that OEC on the federal rules are that you have to start doing that by August of next year. We don't know whether or not those federal rules are going to stay under the current administration. So SB1 said that by the start of fiscal year 27, it has to happen. But we are slowly moving towards the idea of Care for Kids paying people in advance as opposed to paying 30 days in arrears. How will this impact family child care? The Early Start program has now been opened up to family child care providers. In the last round of funding, I think it was 10% of the funds went to family child care programs. Family child care represents about 10% of the total capacity. While there are many more family child care providers than there are centers, they obviously serve far fewer children than a big center does. So OEC is trying to match the percentage of capacity with the funding. In those cases, programs are currently getting $10,500 for a full day preschool slot and $13,500 for an infant toddler care slot. The intention is to move that up so that we can raise the wages for early educators, eventually with the goal of getting to parity with public school teachers. But there are a whole lot of details, and a lot of that, how fast that happens, all depends on how much money accumulates in the endowment. The second piece of this is to start expanding the program. In the last RFA, request for applications, that OEC did, they focused on communities with high social vulnerability indexes. So those are the poorer communities, and places that had childcare deserts where there's not enough care in that community. Those two things lessen the impact on the private marketplace where parents are paying the cost themselves, because most of the people who will be affected by those new slots are people who've been locked out of the system altogether because they can't afford it. The growth of the system depends on how much money accumulates in the fund. And for families who are in an Early Start program, they will not pay more than 7% of their income. And for families below $100,000, it would be free. The other thing that was a key change from the governor's original proposal, the governor originally proposed this as a universal pre-K endowment. This is an early childhood endowment with 35% of the new slots being infant toddler slots. That was a huge win for the early childhood advocacy community, because we kept saying, look, we've got a lot of preschool slots, especially in the poorer cities. What we don't have is enough infant toddler care slots. And so there was a question also about accreditation. And yes, programs do have 3 years to become accredited under the current system. I'm assuming that that will continue, and that OEC will continue supports to help programs become accredited. There's a key goal here is to be creating high quality childcare with well-compensated staff who stay in the field and hone their skills and provide great care for young children.
Great. Reminder to everyone to please put questions in the Q&A, not the chat. I will not be able to ask questions that are in the chat alone. Thank you. Going to health insurance real quick. We're going to jump around a little bit. So Adrian, if you're all right with that. Someone's saying, did I understand that the health insurance aspect may be available to all childcare providers in the state? If so, spectacular news. We're spending $20K a month on our health plan. And then Eileen asks, can you summarize the timeline for the health insurance initiative?
Yes, thank you both for those questions. So that is correct. This is CSEA is the Family Child Care Union. However, the healthcare that is being put forward is not just for those family child care providers. This is for all early childhood educators. So if you are center-based, if you are private pay only and you don't have subsidized children, if all of these items are open and available. And so as to the second question for the timeline, in the first year, there will be a study that is conducted that will be produced. That study will then inform a report, which will guide what will happen with the subsidy model. There's a few different models that are being looked at. There's some reference to how family child care providers receive subsidies for healthcare from DC. There's a model from California that they have over there as well. And so this data from the first year of the report and the study will inform how that subsidy model will look for Connecticut.
Thank you. And I also just want to say what an incredible, I mean, part of the reason why we've been able to be so successful this year is because all of these groups work together towards common goals. So, I mean, the fact that you represent one group but are advocating for all, the fact that, you know, we had business in here, we had home base, we had all our kin, we had all these different groups that were focused. And I didn't say that at the beginning, but this is all of the advocates, but it's also a lot of organizations who decided to come together in unity, which is also an awesome thing. So thank you, Adrian. There'll probably be more health insurance questions, so stand by. Meryl, I know Ava is helping with interpretation right now, so I'm just pointing to you, but for families who earn, so 7%, when I just looked in the OLM document, it's up to 7% of a family's income. That's regardless of the number of children in the family.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that clarifying. And then it's if you earn less than $100,000, it's free. And then over $100,000, it's 7% of your gross annual income. Does this only apply to families who place their children into state-funded early start programs? And when does this start? Is it July 1st, 27 for fiscal year 28?
So yes, this is only for children in state-funded programs. The goal of this is to grow that state-funded program by more than double what it is now. Currently serves 17,000 children. The goal is over 7 to 10 years to grow that by another 20,000. So there will be opportunities for programs to join the system. The other thing is that once the endowment is able to fund early start enough that they can pay the full cost of care, they won't need to use Care for Kids, and that should free up another 70 to 75 million that can be used in the Care for Kids system. So I was just answering a question in the chat about, or in the Q&A about, does this impact school age? It does not. The endowment is for children from 0 to 5. But that freeing up Care for Kids money could mean that there would be more Care for Kids funds available for families who need after school care.
So this, because this supplants Care for Kids.
No, because Care for Kids.
Actually, if you could explain that, because that was one question, is how does this mean Care for Kids goes away? How does this interact with Care for Kids?
Okay, so Care for Kids is a pot of federal money that is matched by state dollars. The endowment is intended not to mix with that and to finally take the Care for Kids money out of the state-funded programs. Currently, the state-funded programs don't get paid enough to cover their costs. So they have to try and get as many of their kids onto Care for Kids as well. And that is kind of as all of you who just use Care for Kids knows, it's kind of a crapshoot as to whether or not people get their, the person you think, oh, this person ought to be eligible, might not ever get a slot. And so, and you're also obviously, you got to deal with the wait list. So the goal here is to get the state-funded program entirely funded by the state-funded program and to take the Care for Kids money and have that available for everybody else.
All right, thank you so much. And did you say when this is going to start?
So I think the goal is for that to start in fiscal year 28, which would be
July 27th.
27, yeah.
Yep, thank you.
But that is contingent on there being enough money in the fund to do all of those things.
And also, Edie is totally right. CDC members did do a lot. And listen, I'm sure I've missed 100 different groups who were part of this. So don't take anything I say as the final list. I'm just calling things out, and you're 100% right. Actually, if you all can think of anyone I've missed, put it in the chat and let's celebrate everybody. So that's awesome. Thank you, Edie. Okay, someone is asking if you can explain how the money will continue to be available in the endowment over years in very simple terms so that we can explain it to families and staff.
So each year we are expecting we will put roughly $300 million of surplus funds into the endowment. Each year in the first 2 years, we can take out 12% of that. We hope that that money is earning interest or gains in the market, so that if you put in 200 million this year and 300 million next year, and you've taken out, say, 24 million this year, but you've gotten some returns on investment, you're still going to be close to 475 to 500 million at the end of next year. And then you can take out, after the first 2 years, you could take out 10% of it. Meanwhile, each year we're putting money in and the money is generating interest. So it is an accumulating fund until whatever time it is that the legislature decides to stop funding. But that question of where is the surplus coming from, it is coming from one of the two forced savings accounts that the state has. So the first one was, we can't spend all of the money we get from rich people paying capital gains tax. We set a baseline, and we then said anything above that gets saved to pay off debt. That's the big thing that's generating the huge surpluses. This year, the projected surplus is $2.4 billion on a $26 billion budget, roughly. So almost 10%. It's about 8 or 9% of the of what we're spending. We are saving in surplus. The smaller savings account is just from each year to year. We say we can only budget for 99.8% of what we expect to bring in. So it's kind of like saying, the volatility cap is like that money you earn from the second job. You're just saving all of that money. And the money from the volatility cap or from the revenue cap is like saying, I'm always going to take $50 out of my paycheck and put it into a savings account so that I don't have it to spend right now. And at the end of the year, if we've got enough money there, at the end of the year, we're transferring that money to pay off debt. Now what we're going to do is, instead of paying off debt, we're going to spend that money on early childhood by putting it in.
We're still paying off a lot of debt.
We're paying off a lot of debt, yes.
Yeah. So there's a small percentage of the debt payment that is now going to go towards early childhood.
We've paid off more than $8 billion of debt early in the last 6 or 7 years. So this is clearly working for its intended purposes of paying down debt and controlling spending. Probably doing it too much so, because we've been starving lots of very important things in the state budget. There's not enough money to serve all of the homeless families. There's real questions of whether or not we're going to be able to continue to have as many, free meals at schools. There's just a whole slew of things that are not being funded because of the spending cap.
And as a reminder, this is mostly pension debt from an underpayment of pension debt over generations of state budgets. So this is a long building problem that we are now having to fix. And so taking a small percentage out of that towards childcare feels to me very responsible, actually. Listen, there's one question on something slightly different, but I want to make sure we get it. HB 6921, OEC's technical bill, hasn't had activity since April.
Yep.
Will that move forward, or has all of that content been rolled into another bill?
We expect it will move forward. Committee or agency technical bills are not generally controversial. They're the kinds of things that frequently end up on consent agendas at the end of the session. I'm sure that OEC will be working to get its technical bill passed.
Okay, we have a lot of questions here, so I'm going to try to do rapid fire. Explain away if you need to, but
Yep.
and
Okay.
actually Maggie is commenting in the chat for folks. Does a family have a choice where they want to send their child if they opt into the free care?
They could, because this will be funded through the Early Start program, those programs apply for and get 5-year contracts. So there will be hopefully more subsidized slots in communities. Families can choose one of those programs to get the free care. Other programs in the community can use Care for Kids, but the goal here is that we build this system and that more programs join the Early Start system as it grows.
Thank you. Is the 150 million over 2 years in the budget for Care for Kids?
Ava, you're the
Oh,
one.
wait, is it over 2? Now that's a little confusing. Is it 150 divided by 2, so 75, 75, or is it 150, 150? I think, do you know the answer to that? And
I do not know the answer, but maybe Ava does.
She is still translating, so we'll come back to that.
Okay.
No problem. Will providers be able to offer input on the portal creation?
OEC will need to create a portal, and oh yes, Maggie is
OEC saying yes.
Okay.
Kristen and Maggie both said that.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. And I think, listen, OEC has done a fantastic job of making sure that providers, that there is, family input, that there is provider input. And so obviously, if that ever wanes, we have this group to hold their feet to the fire, but they have been doing a great job on that. I expect that to continue. Okay, let's see what else here. When you say parity to public school teachers, will that include the fact that ECE staff typically work 12 months per year, whereas public school teachers work 10 months? So this is about the contract time.
I will let OEC explain all that when they come on.
Perfect. All right, Kristen, you're going to have to hold that question and come back with it when OEC is here. I'm sorry about that.
I don't want to say the wrong thing, so.
I understand. Well, staff, okay, Ava, go ahead. 150 on the budget, or are you here for a parity question? Let me make sure that I've taken you out of interpretation. 1 second.
That was me. I was on the wrong feed. I was also on the wrong feed. Can you guys
Okay.
hear me now?
We hear you now, and I've taken you out.
I'm so sorry to the Spanish speakers. I did not swap my feed. So if you heard me in English, apologies about that.
No worries. Listen, everybody, if you don't all know, we've got Sandra who provides translation, and Ava always gives her a 5-minute break at some point in the middle. And so you don't always notice that happening behind the scenes, hopefully, but when halfway through there's a little glitch, we're doing that switcheroo. And so, so anyway, apologies, but again, makes it easier for everyone to have access to the information. So Ava, go ahead.
Okay, first, I want to say that everything's fast-paced, and the budget came out literally a few hours ago, the edits. So we have a correction from OEC. We have like a team of like 4 people reading the 700-page document and reviewing, and they corrected that the 150 is actually instead in Care for Kids 34 and 38 million. So it's significantly less and disappointing, but it doesn't undo the endowment conversation, the portal. That is real. Those numbers are real and solidified. And like we mentioned earlier in this call, for SB1, it was passed and approved in the House and the Senate, and it has to just go for a signature. The portal is waiting for the Senate to approve. As for the Care for Kids line item of how much they get, we're getting from the OEC team that the increase there right as of now is 34 and 38. And shout out to John Catalan for also catching that and questioning the numbers. And people are paying attention who are very smart and listen on this call. Things are fast, and thank you for flagging it. Izzy, if it's okay to pass it to Maggie if she's available, I'm sure that I'm other errors on the monies that have been allocated in this version of the budget.
All right. Well, Maggie, if you're available to chat and want to, you can chat me if you want to be made a panelist to talk about any of that, and I'll move you over. All right. Will staff educational levels come into play when wage reimbursements come into effect? Meaning, should we have staff raise their educational levels now to meet any requirements that may be in place as there are for state-funded centers?
I think that's always a good idea. Take advantage of the scholarships that are available and the opportunities to increase your staff credentials. If you want to participate in the Early Start program, or you currently are participating in the Early Start program, there is a requirement that programs have qualified staff. So every opportunity that you can use you could take advantage of to increase the credentials of your staff is a good idea.
Did you say that teachers need to have a degree in order to raise wages?
I'm going to leave explaining the details of all of this, but sort of generally the goal is to have a better compensated, better credentialed staff going forward. Thank
you. Adrian, calling on you for some questions that are sort of in your wheelhouse. And actually, I know you can tell which ones you can comment on better than I can. So if you want to tell me which questions they are, then I can remove them from the queue also.
Okay, perfect. For the folks on the call who are asking about NASFE accreditation, funding, or what that might look like, the union represents family child care providers. NASFE is for FCCs. Our vice president of our union is the point person for the state of Connecticut for NASFE. And so we would be more than happy to host a union meeting where we can specifically discuss NASFE, accreditations and funding. There is an apprenticeship program that is currently on its second wave. And so we look forward to that rolling out more in the future, but definitely would be happy to host a meeting to discuss NASFE specifically.
All right, thank you. And actually, if you could just hit the answer live and then answered button, and then that will move them out of the queue. It makes it so much easier for me when there's this many. We have also been joined by Maggie Adair from the Office of Early Childhood. Maggie, if you want to jump in on any of those things you were probably listening to and saying, hold on, I can answer that. Welcome to join us.
No, this has been great. I just did want to point out the Care for Kids, but I think everything else we've heard has been correct. I just want to, on behalf of Commissioner Bai and the whole office, just shout out to everyone who has worked so hard on getting Senate Bill 1 and 5003 over the line. It's been an amazing partnership, collaboration, so much effort. This is a historic moment for early childhood and for our early childhood system, building a long-term sustainable vehicle to really stabilize the industry, provide more care for families, better outcomes for children. It's just an all around, just amazing win. So I cannot give the advocates and everyone more credit. You've done so much work meeting every Monday. Well, it used to be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday during COVID, and now every Monday, pulling this group together. So really great partner to work on this, and it's been a great to partner with you on this bill. So that's all I wanted to say. We will be happy to come on at a later date to kind of review everything that's passed. And obviously, we're still analyzing the budget. If we find anything different or that we are mistaken on something, we'll let you know.
Thank you so much. And yeah, listen, I couldn't actually be there on Saturday for the vote, but looking at the pictures of OEC staff, of Commissioner Bai, of all of our advocates cheering and hugging, and I just think this has been such a fantastic partnership. So I know I'm sounding like a cheerleader today, but I couldn't be more excited. And thank you.
Well, it's hard not to be a cheerleader today.
It is. It is. All right. I won't apologize for it then. It's happening. Okay, we've still got some more questions, guys. So let's keep it moving here. Let's see. How do you imagine a large number of programs will be able to attend NAEYC accreditation over 3 years when there are not nearly enough educated ECE educators to go around? So how does this impact attracting folks to the field is sort of how I see that question.
Well, the way that we attract folks to the field is to raise wages.
Yeah.
And that's what this will start to do. So, I think that's the word. There needs to be the sense that there is a track to being able to have a living wage in this field. And I think it's clear that there are lots of people working in this field who would like to increase their credentials, like working with children, but right now there doesn't feel like a lot of reward for, taking all those classes and getting a degree. We hope that that's going to change with the passage of the endowment and the growth of Early Start.
Thank you. Adrienne, also, if I could point out, there's a few questions in the Q&A that I think you've answered already, and folks might not have heard because we have people joining it at various times. If you could type the answer to some of those, I think that would be helpful, and then folks will get the answer without us having to ask again.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Is there a scenario in which privately owned centers would receive funding for staff compensation? It's already so difficult to recruit and retain staff. I'm concerned about the funded programs poaching staff from those who are not receiving subsidies.
There was a bill to try and do that this year that did not move forward. I think the focus is going to be on trying to grow the Early Start program to include a lot more providers and to impact it that way.
Right, to try to avoid that. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Will the free care for families earning up to $100,000 a year be full day, full year, or would school day, school year be enough? We've heard there was the governor's pre-K, that could have been school day, school year. We've talked about needing to expand it so that if a family needed full day, full year, they could also access it. How did it shake out?
I think that is one of the details that's going to need to be determined by the endowment board and OEC. There's a board created by the endowment that decides, how much money do we have available? How are we appropriating it? Or what are we recommending to the legislature on how it gets spent? And OEC obviously will have a lot of input in those decisions as they see all the information in the system about how things are working.
Kindergarten start age question.
Yep.
HB 7009 removes the waiver to the kindergarten start age. Will OEC change the pre-K start age? So kindergarten start age no longer, that passed, right? So no longer can you have a waiver. Meryl, maybe give us the 30 seconds on what already passed, and then about how that might shape the pre-K start age.
The waiver becomes optional and then goes away. And Joanne, maybe you can correct my memory on the dates on that. because I know she's done it before at an alliance meeting when I got it wrong.
Is this Joanne
Um,
Kelleher?
Yes.
Yes. Joanne, if you want to talk, you are permitted to. I mean, I've changed the settings so you can.
So the kindergarten start age, the bill, which is 7009, says as of July of 2026, the waiver will be up to the local school district if the local Board of Ed creates a policy. And then as of July of 2027, there is no allowance for any waivers.
Okay. And so then how I'm sorry, I was reading questions. Did you say how that will affect the start age, Meryl? The pre-K start age?
We have not heard anything from OEC yet about that. We'll
Okay.
have to figure
All
that out.
right. Thank you, Joanne.
You're welcome.
Okay, so listen, as excited as I am today, of course, you all know nothing's perfect. There are still like, but what about this? And what about that? And how are we going to fix this? So those questions are good. And I think must be asked because there's always still more to do. And so that's how when I'm reading these, I'm like, oh yeah, and that too. Oh, right, we got to do that. So as excited as I am, you're bringing me back down to earth. So that this community will always do that. All right, so Susan has a question about how this could raise wages for early childhood teachers. Her scenario, she says, if families have free care, there must be a cap of what the state will pay. But what if that's not enough? What if it is not enough for expenses and wages? How will OEC or whomever decide how much to pay per slot? Will deserts get a higher rate? Has there been discussion regarding what happens to centers and home providers who are not accepted into the Early Start program or who are not in a childcare desert, or programs that just decide not to participate? Anything on that, Meryl? Is there anything? I think that's a little more than a comment.
Yeah, I'm
Has that
sorry.
been
I was
considered?
trying to answer a question in the Q&A.
Okay, so this is Susan's question from 1022. How are they going to decide how much to pay per slot so that it is sufficient to actually attract and retain educators? And a question of whether deserts will get a higher rate. How do you retain and attract in places where it's most needed? And then what happens to centers who are not in those communities or who just decide not to participate? Is it just business as
Okay.
usual? What happens?
3 different questions. Very quickly, the first one now was how do they set the rate?
Yeah, how will they set the
Okay.
rate? Yep.
So Commissioner Bai has said that the goal is to move to the cost of quality as defined by the narrow cost analysis. That is an analysis that the state does every couple of years for the federal government that looks at what are the industry wide average costs for various things, and then puts in variables to say, and what if we paid staff at this level? You can find that narrow cost analysis if you simply Google Connecticut narrow cost analysis. It is pretty informative. I think my recollection of last summer's analysis said that the rate for preschool should be about 19.5, and for infant toddler ought to be about 31,000. But it's not going to be an immediate jump to all of a sudden paying that. It's going to have to get phased in as there's money available. And OEC can, explain their plans on how they're going to do this when they come on to answer questions in the future.
Yes, great. And this is the same, if we're talking about a livable wage, it sort of goes to the same thing,
Right.
right?
And then there were 2 other questions in that.
Yep. It was what happens to programs who choose not to participate or who aren't in a childcare desert.
Okay, so and there's another piece about childcare deserts. My understanding is that OEC is going to use a ranking or a point preference in their allocation of grants, where they'll give some preference to childcare deserts as a place to put slots. The reality is the reason that a program is that an area is a childcare desert is primarily because there aren't parents who can afford to pay for the cost of care there, or there isn't the density of parents there to support a childcare facility. And so the idea of putting subsidized slots in places where there are parents but can't afford the cost of care. I mean, that is sort of, I'll use New Britain's example. New Britain, when I got involved in this 24 years ago, had a big shortage of infant toddler care and a big shortage of preschool care. They're now at 76% of kids going to preschool before they start kindergarten. And the reason why is there's something like 1,100 preschool slots, and all but 17 of them are subsidized. The reality is that in New Britain, families can't afford to pay the market rate of care, and they weren't. Now that there's more subsidized slots, more families are sending their kids to preschool. We still have a problem with infant toddler care. The additional infant toddler care slots that Early Start is going to create will help to solve those problems. And then what's the impact on programs that choose not to participate? Programs that choose not to participate can continue to participate in the childcare marketplace and find families who can afford to pay the cost of care.
Thank you. Any update on the family childcare expansion number 6839 from 9 to 12 kids with 2 workers? Updates or comments?
Yep.
Maybe Adrian, is that a you question, or should we go to Meryl?
I mean, I think either Meryl or I can answer it. This is
Why don't you take it away?
This is a pilot program, so it would not immediately expand all family childcare providers from 9 to 12. This would roll out slowly, as I said before. Connecticut loves its pilots and studies. And so the expectation is that, yes, that there would be an additional staff, as the question stated, and that is present during the time of the additional children being present. There was a slight change to the bill right before being approved, which was that it would also require a fire marshal inspection and visit. Rep. Chafee did a very good job at clarifying that this would be a residential inspection and not a commercial inspection. Commercial inspections might have required installations of sprinkler systems in homes, which would just be outrageously costly at that point. And so that was passed in SB1. And Meryl, if I missed anything.
No, I think you got it.
Yep. Thank you. Let's see. There's a couple of questions, guys. If you put in things that
I actually have a question, Izzy.
yeah, great.
Does
Jump in.
anyone know what happened, if anything, to EIN versus Social Security requirements?
For
use of the endowment and making sure that it's not a, well, maybe I should take this offline.
Yeah, Ava,
I will hold my
about-
question. We'll have conversations, and maybe in our overview when we reconvene next Monday, we'll have clarity. I was just curious. Adrian flagged in a meeting, making sure that providers who are undocumented have ample opportunity to still be part of all of the options of these new programs. So I was just curious if there was any movement.
The short answer, Ava, is it's the status quo of what you established previously with the OEC, but we can talk more about that.
Okay, that's helpful. So for providers listening who are undocumented, status quo means that we love you, Connecticut loves you, and keep providing care as long as you'd like to. And hopefully status quo will continue on.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. I think what's left in the Q&A, there's still a lot left, but I think it's things that have been asked in some way. And so I don't know, Adrian or Ava, Meryl, if you guys want to just take a quick second to look through that and see if there was anything that didn't get answered. There's still quite a few there, but I think that they've, for the most part, been answered. One question, I guess, for Meryl or Maggie, are we still thinking about a plan to address the 20-ish centers who lost slots in RFAB?
I don't know of a firm answer on that. I don't know whether OEC has figured that out yet either.
Okay. Thank you. We can't answer everything, but we're doing our best. All right, let's see. I think that's about everything. So, all right, Ava, actually, I'll turn to you to say what's happening the rest of the week. What do we need from folks here? And you know, anything else to kind of keep an eye out for in the next few days.
Well, the short of it is making sure that we're coming today, if you're available, to advocate for the budget and 5003 to be approved. It's still not solid. It's not over till it's over. But if you're available to come to lobby, that's great. If not, we got your back. Still tell legislators to focus on early childhood. And we are going to be convening this Wednesday to thank the legislators for the bills that are early care centered and they're sponsoring. So hope to see you at the LOB or the Capitol.
Thank you so much. And the session ends Wednesday. There was one person's wondering what happened to their question. I don't see it there though. Isabel, I don't see your question, unless it somehow disappeared or got answered in writing, which may be the case. If I'm not seeing it, it probably was answered in writing, and you can go into the Q&A and look there and see if you see it there. Okay, I think we're all set. Adrian, thank you so much for being a guest today and for helping us understand. This is all very exciting, but also very complicated. There's still so many details to wrap our heads around. Everything was, folks, just so you understand, this was like 5 different bills that got negotiated down into 2. And so even the advocates are still trying to figure out what is in these bills. And so if you got wishy-washy answers on a few things, it's because we are still learning as the days go on. We'll have a more solid understanding of it in the next few weeks as we really dig into the budget, really dig into all of the bills that pass. But wanted to at least give you a kind of first glimpse. Here's what we know, snapshot today. So thank you, everybody. I hope you will. Oh, and Mindy saying encourage coming out Wednesday if you can. It is an incredible feeling to celebrate together. And, you know, let's not assume, but hoping that our bills all pass by the end of today, Wednesday will be both a celebration and an opportunity for us to thank all of the legislators who have really stepped up this year and focused on childcare. We've had a ton of legislators join these calls every week. They've been joining the Early Childhood Alliance calls. They've been joining the Childcare for CT calls. They're learning. They want to know. They want to make educated choices. The chairs of Children's Committee have done incredible work. The chairs, you know, we've had so many legislators who are fighting for us. And so assuming everything passes, Wednesday's a fantastic time to come out and thank them. And really put some spotlight on that, because the hard work we've done is worth celebrating, but they are doing really hard work in a time when there are so many competing interests, and they're working for us, and that deserves a lot of praise. So I don't want to start calling out any legislators because I will mess up and forget someone like I just did before, but we'll get a full list up soon. So Meryl, go ahead.
So the one big thing that still has not passed either chamber is the bond package. That includes, as we understand it, $80 million over the next 7 years to be used for childcare facilities, improvements and expansions. So if you got one of those LISC grants, you can, call your legislator and tell them how, important that was to you. If you're one of the many people who applied for a LISC grant that didn't get one, or you are somebody who didn't apply but now sees, oh, that roof is leaking, I need to get some repairs done. It's really important that you call your legislators and tell them that we really need the bond package to pass with the funding for childcare facilities. So that's worth a phone call today if you can make it.
Fantastic. And yes, good to know. We are not at the finish line yet. There's still, and actually, if you want, Meryl, if you can put that into the chat so people have the specific information. If
Okay.
they're going to make that call, that would be good that they know just what they're asking for. So if you could pop it in the chat.
And actually, I had been told that at this time of craziness at the session, it's more important that you send an email than make a phone call, because none of them are in their offices to get phone calls, but they do get their emails on their computers that they've got with them. So I'm going to slip the list, how to find my representative link in there. You just click on it, and you can click in that list to send a message to your legislator. Just tell them that it's important they pass the bond package with early childhood facilities money in it.
Okay, I think we're good. Listen, I think there was Isabel and others, there may not have been every question answered. You are, of course, welcome to email us at info@earlycareconnection.org. I'm not totally clear on your question. And so if you want to send an email with a little bit more detail, then we can try to get that answered for you. And for everyone else here, thank you so much, of course, for being part of this. I hope you're all, even if you're skeptical, even if you're poking holes in all this and saying, how's it going to work? Understand that this industry that we are in is at a crisis, and there are so many programs who are suffering, struggling, going out of business. We need transformative change. And so even if you're skeptical about what these things will bring, this is nonetheless a huge step forward for infusing significant dollars and infrastructure into our industry, which has really been neglected for a long time. So even if you don't want to take any credit for it, and even if you're cranky about some of this, nonetheless, pat yourselves on the back, because you helped to push our industry into the spotlight this year. And I think that we have to now keep it there. We have to hold feet to the fire. We have to keep pushing and make this thing become the transformative system. Let's be the best in the country. Connecticut can do that. We're tiny. Let's do it. So anyway, that's my last word. I will be at the Capitol today. Most of us here that you're looking at will be at the Capitol today. And we hope to see you guys there if you can. So thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week. I'm not going to end the call because I want to catch up on the chat before I do. All right. Thanks, Sandra, and have a great day, everyone.